The drama surrounding Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua was never confined to a single night, a single arena, or even a single rivalry. It was a culmination of years of expectation, pressure, reinvention, and belief, a collision course set long before either man stepped through the ropes at Wembley Stadium. This was not simply a heavyweight title fight between two Englishmen. It was a referendum on eras, on reputations, and on the unforgiving truth of boxing, where history can be rewritten in seconds and legacies are always one punch away from transformation. Wembley had seen it all before. Triumphs that shook the nation, heartbreaks that lingered for years, moments where the roar of the crowd felt like it might lift the roof from the stadium. But on this night, there was something heavier in the air. 96,000 people packed into the vast bowl, not just to watch a fight, but to witness an answer. Could Anthony Joshua, once the face of the division, once the symbol of British boxing dominance, reclaim his place at the summit? Or would Daniel Dubois, still fighting against skepticism even as a reigning champion, finally silence the doubts and announce himself as the present and future of heavyweight boxing? The night began as all great fight nights do, with ritual. The lights dimmed, the crowd buzzed, anticipation crackled like static. And then, from the red corner, Daniel Dubois made his entrance. There was no wasted movement, no theatrical bravado. At 248.6 pounds, Dubois looked solid, composed, and entirely locked in. His face was calm, almost expressionless, but there was an intensity behind his eyes that suggested something deeper. This was not a man hoping to rise to the occasion. This was a man who believed the occasion belonged to him. Dubois' professional record spoke loudly. 23 fights, 21 victories, 20 knockouts, raw numbers that painted a picture of destruction. But numbers alone could not capture the journey that had brought him here. For years, Dubois had lived under the weight of expectation, labeled as a future champion almost before he had the chance to become a present one. When setbacks came, as they always do in boxing, critics were quick to pounce. Questions about his durability, his heart, his mentality followed him into every fight, even after winning the IBF heavyweight title. There were whispers that he was a placeholder, a temporary champion waiting to be exposed. Tonight was his opportunity to end that conversation permanently. Across the ring, the noise swelled as Anthony Joshua emerged from the blue corner. At 252 pounds, he cut an imposing figure, broad-shouldered, powerful, unmistakably familiar. Joshua was more than a fighter. He was a phenomenon, Olympic gold medalist, two-time heavyweight champion of the world, a global superstar whose rise had reignited mainstream interest in boxing across the UK and beyond. For years, he had carried the division on his back, selling out stadiums, headlining massive events, and becoming the standard by which British heavyweights were measured. But the road back to Wembley that night had not been smooth. Joshua had tasted defeat in ways that forced him to confront uncomfortable truths, losses that stripped away the aura of invincibility, fights that raised questions about his confidence, his adaptability, and his hunger. To his credit, Joshua did not retreat. He rebuilt. He adjusted his team, refined his approach, and spoke openly about growth, learning, and rediscovering himself as a fighter. This bout against Dubois was supposed to be the final piece of that rebuild, a chance to reclaim a world title, a chance to prove that the setbacks had strengthened him rather than diminished him, a chance to show that the heavyweight division still revolved around his name. As the referee gave final instructions, both men stood face to face, neither blinking, neither backing down. The bell rang, and immediately it was clear that this would not be a cautious affair. There would be no slow feeling-out process, no tentative jabs thrown merely to gauge distance. Dubois stepped forward with intent, snapping his jab out sharply, establishing his presence in the center of the ring. Joshua circled, light on his feet, eyes locked on Dubois' shoulders, looking for the opening to unleash his right hand. The opening exchanges were tense, explosive. Joshua fired first, a probing right that just missed its mark, followed by a quick combination that tested Dubois' defense. Dubois absorbed it calmly, returned fire with a stiff jab and a short left hook that caught Joshua's attention. The crowd reacted to every connection, every near miss, as if the fight could end at any moment. Joshua looked sharp early, slipping punches and countering with speed. There were flashes of the fighter who had once dominated opponents with clinical precision, but Dubois was unfazed. Each time Joshua landed, Dubois answered. Each time Joshua tried to establish rhythm, Dubois disrupted it with pressure and physicality. The champion's jab began to assert itself, snapping Joshua's head back just enough to remind him that he could not afford complacency. As the first round progressed, Dubois' confidence grew. He began to step into his punches, mixing head and body shots, forcing Joshua to engage rather than simply box on the outside. Joshua responded with combinations of his own, but there was a sense that he was working harder to achieve less. Dubois' guard was tight, his counters precise, his movements economical. Then came the moment that shifted the fight's emotional balance. In a heated exchange, Dubois landed a clean shot that caught Joshua as he was moving. Joshua stumbled and, in an instant that sparked immediate controversy, touched the canvas. It was not a dramatic fall, not a heavy collapse, but it was enough to send a ripple through the stadium. The referee ruled it not a knockdown, allowing the fight to continue, but the damage, both physical and psychological, was done. Joshua rose quickly, but his eyes told a story that words could not. There was surprise there, and urgency. Dubois sensed it immediately. He pressed forward, not recklessly, but with calculated aggression. His punches came in bunches now, each one designed to wear Joshua down, to sap his energy, to test his resolve. Joshua fought back bravely, firing combinations and trying to regain control, but his legs betrayed him at times. There was a subtle unsteadiness, a hesitation that Dubois exploited relentlessly. Round after round, the pattern repeated itself. Joshua would find moments of success, landing clean shots that reminded everyone of his power and skill. But Dubois would respond with pressure, with volume, with a refusal to be intimidated. The champion's jab continued to be a weapon, disrupting Joshua's timing and preventing him from setting his feet. When Dubois went to the body, the impact was visible, Joshua's guard dropping just enough to open opportunities upstairs. The crowd, once firmly behind Joshua, began to sense a shift. Cheers turned into gasps. Hope turned into tension. This was no longer a coronation for challenger. This was a fight slipping away from him. By the middle rounds, the cumulative effect of Dubois' assault was undeniable. Joshua was still dangerous, still capable of ending the fight with a single punch, but he was fighting uphill. Every exchange seemed to favor the champion. Dubois' confidence was now complete. He stalked Joshua with patience, cutting off the ring, forcing him into uncomfortable positions. There was no panic in his approach, no rush to force the finish. He knew the damage was adding up. Between rounds, Joshua's corner urged him on, reminding him of who he was, of what he was capable of. And to his credit, Joshua answered. He came out swinging, determined to change the narrative. For brief moments, it looked like he might. A sharp right hand here, a combination there. The crowd roared, sensing a possible turning of the tide. But Dubois stood firm. He absorbed the shots, reset, and came back with authority. Each exchange seemed to take a little more from Joshua, draining his reserves, blunting his attacks. This was not just a physical battle. It was a mental one.